child of the pure, unclouded brow and dreaming eyes of wonder. Though time be fleet, and I and thou are half a life asunder, thy loving smile will surely hail the love-gift of a fairy tale. I have not seen thy sunny face, nor heard thy silver laughter. No thought of me shall find a place in thy young life's hereafter. Enough that now thou wilt not fail to listen to my fairy tale. A tale begun in other days when summer suns were glowing, a simple chime that served to time the rhythm of our rowing, whose echoes live in memory yet, though envious years would say, forget. Come, hearken then, ere voice of dread with bitter tidings laden shall summon to unwelcome bed a melancholy maiden. We are but older children, dear, who fret to find our bedtime near. Without, the frost, the blinding snow, the storm wind's moody madness. Within, the firelight's ruddy glow and childhood's nest of gladness. The magic words shall hold thee fast, thou shalt not heed the raving blast. And though the shadow of a sigh may tremble through the story, for happy summer days gone by, and vanished summer glory, it shall not touch with breath of bale the pleasance of our fairy tale.
Ahem. Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. Chapter 1. Looking Glass House. Alice is playing with a white kitten, whom she calls Snowdrop, and a black kitten, whom she calls Kitty. When she ponders what the world is like on the other side of a mirror's reflection, climbing up onto the fireplace mantel, she pokes at the wall-hung mirror behind the fireplace and discovers, to her surprise, that she is able to step through it to an alternative world of door-take gigs. In this reflected version of her own house, she finds a book with looking-glass poetry, Jabberwocky, whose reversed printing she can read only by holding it up to the mirror. She also observes that the chess pieces have come to life, though they remain small enough for her to pick up. Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll.
Jabberwocky. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome rats outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jubjub bird, and shun the frumious Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the mandsome foe he sought. So rested he by the Tumtum tree, and stood a while in thought. And, as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock, with eyes of flame, came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. Oh, frabjous day, calloo, callay, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome rats outgrabe.
Chapter 2. The Garden of Live Flowers. Upon leaving the house, where it had been a cold, snowy night, she enters a sunny spring garden where the flowers can speak. They perceive Alice as being a flower that can move about. Elsewhere in the garden, Alice meets the Red Queen, who is now human-sized and who impresses Alice with her ability to run at breathtaking speeds. Chapter 3. Looking Glass Insects. The Red Queen reveals to Alice that the entire countryside is laid out in squares like a gigantic chessboard, and offers to make Alice a queen if she can move all the way to the 8th-ranked row in a chess match. Alice is placed in the second rank as one of the White Queen's pawns and begins her journey across the chessboard by boarding a train that jumps over the third row and directly into the fourth rank, thus acting on the rule that pawns can advance 2 spaces on their first move. She arrives in a forest where a depressed gnat teaches her about the looking-glass insects, strange creatures, part bug, part object, before flying away sadly. Alice continues her journey and along the way crosses the wood where the things have no names and where the bears shit in. There she forgets all nouns, including her own name. With the help of a fawn who has also forgotten his identity, she makes it to the other side, where they both remember everything. Realizing that he is a fawn, she is a human, and that fawns are afraid of humans, it runs off to Alice's frustration. Chapter 4. Tweedledum and Tweedledumber. She then meets the fat twin brothers Tweedledum and Tweedledumber, whom she knows from the nursery rhyme, The Walrus and the Carpenter by Lewis Carroll.
Here it is, Pox FM. We've got a new band here called the Tweedledumber, and they're going to play I Am the Platypus.
The Walrus and the Carpenter. The sun was shining on the sea, shining with all his might. He did his very best to make the billows smooth and bright, and this was odd, because it was the middle of the night. The moon was shining sulkily because she thought the sun had got no business to be there after the day was done. "It's very rude of him," she said, "to come and spoil the fun." The sea was wet as wet could be. The sands were dry as dry. You could not see a cloud because no cloud was in the sky. No birds were flying overhead. There were no birds to fly. The Walrus and the Carpenter were walking close at hand. They wept like anything to see such quantities of sand. "If this were only cleared away," they said, "it would be grand. If 7 maids with 7 mops swept it for half a year, do you suppose," the Walrus said, "that they could get it clear?" "I doubt it," said the Carpenter, and shed a bitter tear. "Oh, oysters, come and walk with us," the Walrus did beseech. "A pleasant walk, a pleasant talk along the briny beach. We cannot do with more than 4 to give a hand to each." The eldest oyster looked at him, but never a word he said. The eldest oyster winked his eye and shook his heavy head, meaning to say he did not choose to leave the oyster bed. But 4 young oysters hurried up, all eager for the treat. Their coats were brushed, their faces washed, their shoes were clean and neat. And this was odd because, they hadn't any feet. 4 other oysters followed them, and yet another 4. And thick and fast they came at last, and more and more and more, all hopping through the frothy waves and scrambling to the shore. The Walrus and the Carpenter walked on a mile or so, and then they rested on a rock, conveniently low, and all the little oysters stood and waited in a row. "The time has come," the Walrus said, "to talk of many things, of shoes and ships and sealing wax, of cabbages and kings, and why the sea is boiling hot, and whether pigs have wings." "But wait a bit," the oysters cried, "before we have our chat, for some of us are out of breath, and all of us are fat." "No hurry," said the Carpenter. They thanked him much for that. "A loaf of bread," the Walrus said, "is what we chiefly need. Pepper and vinegar besides are very good indeed. Now if you are ready, oysters dear, we can begin to feed. But not on us, the oysters cried, turning a little blue. After such kindness, that would be a dismal thing to do. The night is fine, the walrus said. Do you admire the view? It was so kind of you to come, and you are very nice. The carpenter said nothing, but, cut us another slice. I wish you were not quite so deaf. I've had to ask you twice. It seems a shame, the walrus said, to play them such a trick, after we've brought them out so far and made them trot so quick. The carpenter said nothing, but the butter's spread too thick. I weep for you, the walrus said. I deeply sympathise. With sobs and tears he sorted out those of the largest size, holding his pocket handkerchief before his streaming eyes. Oh, oysters, said the carpenter, you've had a pleasant run. Shall we be trotting home again? But answer came none. And this was scarcely odd, because they'd eaten every one.
Did you down, Father? Rescue! Down, Father, rescue!
After reciting the long poem, The Walrus and the Carpenter, Tweedledum and Tweedledumber draw Alice's attention to the Red King, loudly snoring away under a nearby tree, and maliciously provoke her with idle philosophical banter.
It's a 4-band door take, mate. You get a free beer.
That she exists only as an imaginary figure in the Red King's dreams. Finally, the brothers begin suiting up for battle, only to be frightened away by an enormous crow, as the nursery rhyme about them predicts. Chapter 5. Wool and Water. Alice next meets the White Queen, who is very absent-minded, but boasts of and demonstrates her ability to remember future events before they even have happened. Alice and the White Queen advance into the chessboard's 5th rank by crossing over a brook together. But at the very moment of the crossing, the Queen transforms into a talking sheep in a small shop. Alice soon finds herself struggling to handle the oars of a small rowboat, where the sheep annoys her with seemingly nonsensical shouting about crabs and feathers.
Mate, if we paid your band, we'd have to pay every band. Don't forget to bring all your mates.
Chapter 6. Humpty Dumpty. After crossing yet another brook into the 6th rank, Alice immediately encounters Humpty Dumpty, who, besides celebrating his unbirthday, provides his own translation of the strange terms in Jabberwocky. In the process, he introduces Alice to the concept of portmanteau words before his inevitable fall. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. Humpty Dumpty's poem for Alice. In winter, when the fields are white, I sing this song for your delight. Only I don't sing it. In spring, when woods are getting green, I'll try and tell you what I mean. Thank you very much, said Alice. In summer, when the days are long, perhaps you'll understand the song. In autumn, when the leaves are brown, take pen and ink and write it down. I will if I can remember it so long, said Alice. I sent a message to the fish. I told them this is what I wish. The little fishes of the sea, they sent an answer back to me. The little fish's answer was, we cannot do it, sir, because... I'm afraid I don't quite understand, said Alice. It gets easier further on, Humpty Dumpty replied. I sent to them again to say it will be better to obey. The fishes answered with a grin, why, what a temper you are in. I told them once, I told them twice, they would not listen to advice. I took a kettle large and new, fit for the deed I had to do. My heart went hop, my heart went thump, I filled the kettle at the pump. Then someone came to me and said, the little fishies are in bed. I said to him, I said it plain, then you must wake them up again. I said it very loud and clear, I went and shouted in his ear. Humpty Dumpty raised his voice almost to a scream as he repeated this verse, and Alice thought with a shudder, I wouldn't have been the messenger for anything. But he was very stiff and proud, he said, you needn't shout so loud. And he was very proud and stiff, he said, I'd go and wake them if. I took a corkscrew from the shelf, I went to wake them up myself, and when I found the door was locked, I pulled and pushed and kicked and knocked. And when I found the door was shut, I tried to turn the handle, but... There was a long pause. Is that all? Alice timidly asked. That's all, said Humpty Dumpty. Goodbye. Chapter 7. The Lion and the Unicorn. All the king's horses and all the king's men come to Humpty Dumpty's assistance and are accompanied by the White King, along with the Lion and the Unicorn, who again proceed to act out a nursery rhyme by fighting with each other. The Lion and the Unicorn were fighting for the crown. The Lion beat the Unicorn all around the town. Some gave them white bread and some gave them brown. Some gave them plum cake and drummed them out of the town. Paradiddle, paradiddle. In this chapter, the March Hare and Hatter of the first book make a brief reappearance in the guise of Anglo-Saxon messengers called Haya and Hatter. Chapter 8. It's my own invention! Upon leaving the Lion and Unicorn to their fate, Alice reaches the 7th rack by crossing another brook into the forested territory of the Red Knight, who is intent on capturing the White Pawn. Alice, until the White Knight comes to her rescue. Escorting her through the forest towards the final brook crossing, the knight recites a long poem of his own composition called Haddock's Eyes, and repeatedly falls off his horse. I'll tell thee everything I can. There's little to relate. I saw an aged man a-sitting on a gate. Who are you, aged man? I said, and how is it you live? And his answer trickled through my head like water through a sieve. He said, I look for butterflies that slip along the wheat. I make them into mutton pies and sell them in the street. I sell them unto men, he said, who sail on stormy seas, and that's the way I get my bread. A trifle, if you please. But I was thinking of a plan to dye one's whiskers green, and always use so large a fan that they could not be seen. So having no reply to give to what the old man said, I cried, Come, tell me how you live, and thumped him on the head. His accent mild took up the tale. He said, I go my ways, and when I find a mountain rill, I set it in a blaze. And thence they make a stuff they call Rowland's Macassar oil. Yet 2p halfpenny is all they give me for my toil. But I was thinking of a way to feed oneself on batter, and so on go on from day to day, getting a little fatter. I shook him well from side to side until his face was blue. Come tell me how you live, I cried, and what is it you do? He said, I hunt for haddock's eyes among the heather bright, and work them into waistcoat buttons in the silent night. And these I do not sell for gold or coin or silvery shine, but for a copper halfpenny, and that will purchase 9. I sometimes dig for buttered rolls or set lime twigs for crabs. I sometimes search the grassy knolls for wheels of handsome cabs. And that's the way, he gave a wink, by which I get my wealth, and very gladly will I drink your honour's noble health. I heard him then, for I had just completed my design to keep the Menai Bridge from rust by boiling it in wine. I thanked him much for telling me the way he got his wealth, but chiefly for his wish that he might drink my noble health. And now, if e'er by chance I put my fingers into glue, or madly squeeze a right-hand foot into a left-hand shoe, or if I drop upon my toe a very heavy weight, I weep, for it reminds me so of that old man I used to know, whose look was mild, whose speech was slow, whose hair was whiter than the snow, whose face was very like a crow, with eyes like cinders all aglow, who seemed distracted with his woe, who rocked his body to and fro, and muttered mumbling and low, as if his mouth were full of dough, who snorted like a buffalo that summer evening long ago, a-sitting on a gate. Chapter 9. Queen Alice. Bidding farewell to the White Knight, Alice steps across the last brook and is automatically crowned a queen, with the crown materializing abruptly on her head, a reference to porn promotion. She soon finds herself in the company of both the White and Red Queens, who relentlessly confound Alice by using wordplay to thwart her attempts at logical discussion.
Mate, if we paid your band, the industry would collapse.
They then invite one another to a party that will be hosted by the newly crowned Alice, of which Alice herself had no prior knowledge. The door was flung open and a shrill voice was heard singing. To the looking-glass world it was Alice that said, I've a sceptre in hand, I've a crown on my head. Let the looking-glass creatures, whatever they be, come and dine with the Red Queen, the White Queen, and me. All the voices joined. Then fill up the glasses as quick as you can and sprinkle the table with buttons and bran. Put cats in the coffee and mice in the tea, and welcome Queen Alice with 30 times 3. Oh, looking-glass creatures, quoth Alice, draw near. 'Tis an honour to see me, a favour to hear. 'Tis a privilege high to have dinner and tea, along with the Red Queen, the White Queen, and me. Then fill up the glasses with treacle and ink, or anything else that is pleasant to drink. Mix sand with the cider and rue with the wine, and welcome Queen Alice with 90 times 9. Chapter 10. Shaking. Alice arrives and seats herself at her own party, which quickly turns into chaos. That's because it was a door-take gig. Alice finally grabs the Red Queen, believing her to be responsible for all the day's nonsense, and begins shaking her.
Get your hands off me. It's not my fault.
Chapter
You
11.
don't get paid. You gotta ask
Waking.
for it.
Alice wakes in her armchair to find herself holding the black kitten, who she deduces to have been the Red Queen all along, with the White Kitten having been the White Queen. Chapter 12. Which dreamed it? The story ends with Alice recalling the speculation of the Tweedle brothers, Tweedledum and Tweedledumber, that everything may have been a dream of the Red King, and that Alice might herself be no more than a figment of his imagination. The book ends with the line, Life, what is it but a dream? The end.
A boat beneath a sunny sky, lingering onward dreamily in an evening of July. Children 3 that nestle near, eager eye and willing ear, pleased a simple tale to hear. Long has paled that sunny sky, echoes fade and memories die. Autumn frosts have slain July. Still she haunts me, phantom-wise, Alice moving under skies never seen by waking eyes. Children yet the tale to hear, eager eye and willing ear, lovingly shall nestle near. In a wonderland they lie, dreaming as the days go by, dreaming as the summers die. Ever drifting down the stream, lingering in the golden gleam. Life, what is it but a dream?
5.